misplace billions of dollars. Details on the Pentagon's major money mishap in Iraq.
You heard it right, $8.7 billion missing. Dates from 2004 to 2007. A new audit shows the U.S. Defense Department is unable to properly account for billions of dollars entrusted to it by the Iraqi government to rebuild the war-ravaged nation. We're analyzing coverage of the debate from MSNBC, HLN, CNN, and the LA Times. HLN explains the audit's findings.
A U.S. government audit blames the Defense Department for not keeping track of the cash. The report says the funds could have been used inappropriately. The Pentagon has not managed the funds since 2007.
On CNN, Arwa Damon reports on where the money came from and the difficulty in finding where it went.
This is actually Iraqi money. It's oil revenue. It's surplus left over from the Oil for Food program. That was a time when it was really complete chaos. I mean, people were walking around with suitcases full of money trying to get things done, and billions of dollars went missing. Billions of U.S. dollars went missing back then as well. And so it would be very hard to try to recreate what happened, especially given the chaotic and difficult circumstances here. And it does certainly appear that the money is just gone. So here we have a case where the Iraqis placed their trust in the U.S. and the U.S. has failed them.
And while the LA Times says fraud isn't suspected, no one really knows for sure. The improper accounting practices add to the pattern of mismanagement, reckless spending, and in some instances, corruption uncovered by the agency since 2004. So what do you think happened to all that money? Should the Pentagon be held accountable? And what should change going forward? I'm Chance Seals for Newsy.com. Multiple sources, the real story.
Pentagon. The day before 9/11, Secretary of Defense Donald Rumsfeld declared war, not on foreign terrorists.
The adversary is closer to home. It's the Pentagon bureaucracy.
He said money wasted by the military poses a serious threat.
In fact, it could be said that it's a matter of life and death.
Rumsfeld promised change, but the next day, the world changed. And in the rush to fund the war on terrorism, the war on waste seems to have been forgotten.
My 03 budget calls for more than $48 billion in new defense spending.
More money for the Pentagon when its own auditors admit the military cannot account for 25% of what it already spends.
According to some estimates, we cannot track $2.3 trillion in transactions.
$2.3 trillion with a T. That's $8,000 for every man, woman, and child in America. To understand how the Pentagon can lose track of trillions, consider the case of one military accountant who tried to find out what happened to a mere $300 million.
We know it's gone, but we don't know what they spent it on.
Jim Minery, a former Marine turned whistleblower, is risking his job by speaking out for the first time about the millions he noticed were missing from one defense agency's balance sheets. Minery tried to follow the money trail, even crisscrossing the country looking for records.
The director looked at me and he says, "Why do you care about this stuff?" It took me aback, you know. My supervisor asked me why I care about doing a good job. So.
He was reassigned and says officials then covered up the problem by just writing it off.
They got to cover it up. That's where the corruption comes in. They've got to cover up the fact that they can't do the job.
The Pentagon's Inspector General partially substantiated several of Minery's allegations, but could not prove officials tried to manipulate the financial statements. 20 years ago, Pentagon employee Franklin C. Spinney made headlines exposing what he calls the accounting games. He's still there, and although he does not speak for the Pentagon, he believes the problem has gotten worse.
Those numbers are pie in the sky. The books are cooked routinely year after year after year.
Retired Vice Admiral Jack Shanahan commanded the Navy's Second Fleet the first time Donald Rumsfeld served as Defense Secretary.
With good financial oversight, we could find $48 billion in loose change in that building without having to hit the taxpayer.
In the 2.5 minutes since this report began, the Pentagon has spent nearly $2 million, and it may never know where 25% of those tax dollars went. In Los Angeles, I'm Vince Gonzalez for Eye on America.
Let me now get into this article. This is out of Federal News Radio, 1500 AM, top story on drugs, at least it was an hour ago. And we're glad Drudge is linking to this. The point is, the media is focusing on 8.7 billion missing, and not focusing on congressional hearings in 2001, 2003, 4, and 5. And you can just search Rumsfeld being grilled about missing trillions. You can see the C-SPAN clips on YouTube. We uploaded them. That's how I know they're there. And he says, yeah, I'm not going to tell you where the trillions are. And then he has the head of the Office of Budget from the Pentagon, Dr. Chu. And Chu says that, he won't say. He looks like a bad guy from a James Bond movie. But I found an archived clip that somebody in 2006 put on YouTube from a 2001 CBS News clip. It's very bad quality. But you can just search for the headline for this video and find it. We'll give you that headline in a moment. In fact, let's go ahead and play a short clip of the big issue. Because while you're busy worrying about 8.7 billion, it was 2.3, then it was 4, then it was 5. Last time they had a hearing in 2005, it was over 5 trillion missing. Because they've raided the Pentagon pension funds. That's why they're announcing they don't want to give health care, and Obama wanted to make veterans pay for their own insurance. Remember that? We had the head of the VFW on last year about it. He was in a meeting with Obama when he proposed it. Because they've stolen all your money that was put in there to pay for things. There's not just the $2 trillion a year, the $1 trillion, $200 billion on budget, the $100 billion off budget, then all the black budget money. There's all the other Pentagon investments. They buy stocks and bonds and derivatives, and it's all been stolen, and it's as big as the banking heist. Let's go ahead and play this clip from 8+ years ago, from September 10th.
I get tired of saying that defense is to be made an excuse for wasting dollars. I don't believe we should pay 1 cent for defense more than we have to.
I seriously question an increase in the Pentagon budget in the face of the department's recent Inspector General's report. How can we seriously consider a $50 billion increase in the defense budget when DOD's own auditors say the department cannot account for $2.3 trillion in transactions in 1 year alone?
It is, I was going to say terrifying. It is such a monumental task. I have met with 2 former officials of the Pentagon who served in the budget and controller and those areas. And I've mused over the fact that I've read some of these things and asked what they thought.
We process nearly 10 million paychecks a month. 10 million times to get things screwed up. I've had my pay screwed up 6 times since I've been in the department. And it's really bad when you screw up your boss's pay.
I doubt, to be honest, that people inside the department are going to be capable of sorting this out. I have a feeling it's going to take some folks from outside to come in and look at this and put in place a process that over a period, and I regret to say, but I've seen how long things take. I think it's going to take a period of years to sort it out, and I think it'll probably take the cooperation of the Congress to try to get this system so that you can actually manage the financial aspects of that institution rather than simply report on things that have happened imperfectly.
There's more oversight over the Head Start program than there is over the entire military budget.
It's a terrible record, and it's preposterous that the Defense Department doesn't know what's happened to this money.
This situation's a disgrace. It tells me that we can't meet our constitutional obligations to the taxpayers of our country to make sure that things are honestly and legally spent.
We're told major cuts in education programs, and then we read, well, you know, $500 million is paid per year that isn't owed.
It is an incredible thing that we arm the world and then turn around and come to Congress and say, look at all these weapons out there. They're almost superior to ours. They're comparable to ours. Well, of course they are. They're ours. We sold them to them.
Since the end of the Cold War, we've sold more military weapons than the rest of the world combined.
In the councils of government, we must guard against
the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex. The potential for the disastrous rise of misplaced power exists and will persist.
My name is Jack Shanahan, Vice Admiral, U.S. Navy, retired. One of our nuclear bombs blows up Hiroshima 15 times over. 5 devastates Russia. After that, this is how many the U.S. has left. I feel safe reducing nuclear weapons. Do you?
Justice, it's not about agenda, it's not about mobilizing people, it's about dialing for corporate dollars. These two parties have sold the U.S. government and the American people to the highest bidders.